US intelligence officials believed that they had to assume that Iran would become a nuclear power within 5 years, and that United States interests might be a primary target.
Well, I think that the most basic reason that Americans should be concerned about atomic ayatollahs is that they keep chanting "Death to America" after Friday prayers. They're still doing it after 25 years.
To many Westerners, Iran presents a frightening prospect. A radical Islamic republic that appears intent on becoming a nuclear power. Iranians are the descendants of one of the world's greatest civilizations, the Persian Empire. For over 2,000 years, since the time of Cyrus the Great, the Persians have been a proud and powerful people. The borders of the Middle East have been drawn and redrawn for centuries. Countries and kingdoms have come and gone. Only Iran, or Persia as it was known before 1935, has remained relatively intact.
Iran is a country that has existed more or less within the same boundaries for more than 2,000 years. They existed long before the United States of America was even a dream. The fact that they are a very ancient country and are not going to be pushed around or lectured to by anyone else.
Iran is not Arab. It's not Arab in speech or in tradition. It, in fact, is Iranian or Persian. That's a totally different language. And Iranians often get very upset if they're confused for Arabs.
If you sit with almost every Iranian and start a conversation about anything, it ends up usually in a discussion where people talk about Iran as the greatest civilization of all time.
Their justifiable pride is rooted in epic battles, developments and conquests that stretch back 2,500 years, to a time when Cyrus the Great ruled the Persian Empire.
It was the world's greatest military power. The Persian Empire was perhaps the world's first great superpower.
Cyrus remains an imposing figure in Iran. Iranian schools teach about the achievements of the great king. Cyrus was born in 580 BC to a noble family in a small kingdom called Ansan, in what is now northern Iran. His family's domain was controlled by powerful kings who demanded tributes from all the neighboring tribes. One story tells of young Cyrus and his father paying a visit to the kingdom of Media. Cyrus was dismayed when his father gave the king a valuable gift of wild horses. He vowed to never pay tribute to another king. In 559 BC, Cyrus's father died, and Cyrus became the leader of his tribe. At the age of 21, he set out to form a coalition of small tribal armies. By the time he was 30, Cyrus had assembled a powerful and well-trained army. The king of Media became intimidated by the growing army. He surrendered to Cyrus after a series of skirmishes. After Media, Cyrus expanded his domain, sending his forces south, capturing land across what is now Iran. His conquests were the result of his keen military instincts. His army was well ahead of its time.
He was the first one to divide it up into tactical wings of archers and infantry, the first one to introduce cavalry as a battle wing.
Persian troops were armed with short iron daggers and metal-tipped wooden spears. For protection, the infantry relied on lightweight wicker shields that allowed foot soldiers greater mobility. In 539 BC, Cyrus prepared for an assault on the greatest city in the ancient world, Babylon. It was a rich and powerful kingdom between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in what is now Iraq. Its leader was the hated king Nebuchadnezzar. Cyrus's army converged on Babylonian forces outside the city. Cyrus gave the command. The infantry was set. The archers pulled back on their bows and released a hail of arrows on the enemy. They reloaded and fired again. Then the cavalry swarmed the flanks of the enemy. Using spears and battle axes, Cyrus's army took down the remaining enemy troops one by one. After months of battle, Cyrus captured Babylon. While he expanded the Persian Empire with military victories like this, Cyrus also maintained control of his growing kingdom with political skill. At the time, it was customary for a conquering king to demolish cities, murder the inhabitants, and deface religious icons. Cyrus acted differently.
Cyrus seems to have been one of these figures in history who recognized differences in power, differences among nations, and found ways to exploit them.
When Cyrus took the city of Babylon, the citizens, who had heard rumors of the conquering king's benevolence, greeted him with cheers. In Babylon, Cyrus immediately freed more than 40,000 enslaved Jews, allowing them to return to Jerusalem. Similar incidents are recorded in the Old Testament.
He's referred to as the Lord's anointed. The word is essentially the word that we translate as Messiah.
After Babylon, Cyrus's army headed east to the Indus River, as well as west towards the Mediterranean Sea. His empire stretched from Egypt across the Middle East to what became India. It is estimated that eventually the Persian Empire controlled nearly 1 million square miles of territory and 70 million people. Cyrus's reign ended in 530 BC, when he died on the battlefield. After his death, his empire thrived for nearly 200 years, until it was overrun by Alexander the Great in 331 BC. Cyrus's grandeur has not faded from Persian memory. Under his rule, they became a unified people. Their cities, culture, and technology were admired throughout the known world. Centuries before the Roman Empire, the Persians had built a comprehensive network of roads, developed uniform weights and measures, standardized money, and developed a sophisticated postal system. It is this glorious place in history that many Iranians seek to recapture. The Persian Empire dominated much of the ancient world for centuries. Even after the empire's defeat, the Persian people maintained their independence for thousands of years. But in the 19th century, Persia's independence began to decline. Some claim that Iran's apparent efforts to develop a nuclear weapon is an attempt to regain world prominence and revenge its recent past. In the early 1800s, Persia was invaded by the British from the south and the Russians from the north. Persia was further weakened by a series of kings, or shahs, who became notorious for squandering the country's resources.
It gets spent on wasteful wars which do nothing but lead to defeat at the hands of various powers. It gets spent on luxuries and on corruption.
In May 1908, a prospector discovered oil in the British-controlled plains of Iran. The Shah at the time, Muzaffar al-Din, sold the rights